Hey guys, how's it going today? We are going to be playing Tin Star by Alan Geese or Geis or whatever it is. Look, it's a name. That's what it is. You guys can see it. So this is going to be the fourth game that I've played in the Choose Your Own Adventure type category. This isn't actually a choice of games. There's actually a separate grouping that's made with the same exact engine and everything like that, but it's a separate series for some reason. And so when I went on Steam and looked up choice of games after playing Champion of the Gods by Jonathan Valukas, Choice of Robots by Kevin Gold PhD, and then Choice of the Pirate by Elena Jolie Abbott. I went ahead and I went on their website to see what the requirements were to make one and if I could turn my own. I was essentially hired to like do a the storyline for a Choose Your Own Adventure like dating sim type thing, and somebody else was going to do the artwork, and they asked me to do the writing for it, and then they wanted somebody else to code it, so I had to get the story ready to go and get all of the dialogue ready for the person coding it. Person coding it backed out. Person who was doing the artwork never did a single piece on it, and I just kept the IP for the actual like storyline. So eventually I'll end up doing something with that. If I can't find somebody who is willing to put it in a different format for me, I will just end up writing it as a book because I write books. I've got the first ones published already. But anyway, I did go ahead and play one of the other ones that was in this series. It was called Choice of the Deathless. And I played that one when I was in college, and I I didn't finish it, so I can't say if I liked it or didn't like it. I didn't like it at the time because it was all about like managing where you were living, your rent and stuff like that, and going to school and trying to compete your job and everything. It was just you were supposed to balance all of this different type of stuff, and it all went downhill, which was part of the storyline, and that bothered me. Actually, I did an entire three series on a different one. It was The Lost Heir. I did all three of those games, so those ones were ones that I did too. I forget who did that one, but I fucking hated it because that was annoying.
Hey, are you gonna want
It was
cheese on
just
your
terrible.
potatoes?
Yes.
Yeah?
So let's just go ahead and start playing Tin Star. So let's go show stats like I always do. I'm the unknown wanderer. I have no traits, no current companions. I am healthy and vigorous. I'm broke. Oh, I'm also broke in the game. Anyway, values. I value order and freedom equally, honor and arbitrary equally, law and individuality equally. I have no notoriety. I am fully anonymous. My anonymity is 100%. I tried to figure out how to like make these invisible. I couldn't quite figure it out. I didn't look up a tutorial or anything like that. I just kind of got screwed. Ooh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will eat that later.
What game are you playing?
Skills, gunfighting, I'm at 30%. Sharpshooting, I'm at 30%. Brawling is at 30%. I'm 25% riding, 20% survival, 10% legal, 10% engineer, 15% explosive, 25% persuasion, 25% intimidate, 20% stamina, 20% resolve. And then these are, I'm assuming that's just the coding for them. So this is how I am with Carson Schmidt, Caraway, Preston, Hardigan, Albion, Maria, Marshall, James, and Yiska. I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's change statistics to story-based format and review them. Change statistics to story-based format and return to game. Interesting. We're going to ignore that and just say that it didn't work out with whatever. Like this particular thing had a coding bug in it. Hopefully these will be really high quality. I really, really enjoyed Champion of the Gods. That one worked out really well with the way that I played it. There were a couple things I would have done differently, having gone back and replayed it and everything. Just for like achievements and stuff like that. Choice of the Robots, almost cried. For real. Like, seriously? No spoilers, but almost cried. Let's go ahead and return to game and start this up real quick. My mouse is glitching out. Alright, let's get ready. Also, we've got Willow here, who just dropped something on my lap. Why are you wearing shoes? Get those out of here. What is that? What did you drop? It's under my foot. There we go. Oh, it's a dime. Here you go. Take it. There you go. Let's set the cookies out of your reach, actually. We'll stick them up there on my dark cloud case. Okay, now we're going to start. Dawn creeps steadily towards. I'm not going to do that. Dawn creeps steadily towards the sleepy city of San Francisco. A host of ships lie at anchor with their sails furled as they bob in the bay. You turn from the ocean view as you reach the top of the stairs and find white tufts of woolly sheep drifting up the lush green hillsides to the east. Sunlight slowly broaches the unclattered mountains until a golden sheen illuminates a crown of glory against an endless blue sky. Again, every time I start up again, I'm going to be in a state of not really reading. I'm not that great at reading off of computer screens to begin with, but I'll smooth out a little bit more as we go. I also need to actually remember to take breaths while I'm talking. Down below, the creak of metal-rimmed wheels rises up as the city awakens to a chorus of horses and carts. A hint of rain hangs heavy in the air and promises to wash every corner of the sprawling expanse clean. A fine morning, or it would be if not for the impatient whisk of a hangman's noose. Oh, am I about to be hung? This is a Bethesda game. The crime is murder, and the sentence is hanging by the neck until dead. The execution to be carried out this day, April 23rd, 1867, a stiff-shirted deputy intones as the noose is slipped around your neck. The lawman's pepper-box pistol remains holstered, but his fingers keep seeking the grip because he knows as well as you that desperate people do desperate things. At the far corner of the platform waits an ominous figure, a hangman in a flat black leather hood that refuses to shift in the early morning breeze. His hard eyes are fixed upon you, and his hand stays poised atop a simple lever. Beneath you, the trapdoor gives out a low groan as if in morbid anticipation. The creak of rawhide about your wrist echoes that sentiment all too readily. A terrible stillness settles in. This is it, the end. As if hearing that very thought, a black-clad priest steps close with Bible in hand. My child, you stand upon the final threshold, the priest asks. The priest asks with a profound gentleness. The clerical collar about his neck is crisp, white, and relatively speaking, tight about his throat. Will you renounce Satan in all his guises? Say nothing. I am innocent. Father, I have been wrongly convicted. The prosecution didn't even present prima facie evidence. Prima facie? I don't know that word. Yes, I do. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Struggle against my bonds. All due respect, Padre, now is not the time for making enemies. Skip ahead, not recommended for first-time players. I'm going to try to play this as realistically as I would possible. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is I'm innocent. But in a thing, I've obviously been wrongly convicted in whatever case this is. My child, set aside such earthly concerns. Your time has come, the priest says gently. May you be judged fairly by the Almighty Lord and enter the kingdom of heaven. Before you can reply, the hangman pulls the lever. It's a short drop followed by a long slide. The noose never snaps, although you strain in vain against that moment. At last you tumble to a halt amid a dusty cellar. At the far end, a hint of morning light leaks in around a simple door and silhouettes a man in tidy grays that match his thinning hair and broad mustache. Upon his chest rests a simple tin star that marks him as the only law in most parts of California, a marshal. He leans against a timbered wall as though he hadn't a care in the world. An ivory inlaid pistol is holstered at his hip, and a rather large knife balances out on the low rig. The man idly watches as you lurch to your feet and doesn't raise an eyebrow when you pull the noose off. That length of rope snakes down to the ground at your feet, and only then does your full breath return. I need to actually focus on the letters. That way I don't read strangler instead of stranger. The stranger's voice holds a prickle of irony as he begins to speak. I heard you protest your innocence up there. I can't say I blame you, given the irregularities in your case. I'm Marshal James, and there's a need in the territories for stalwart folk who wear a badge and get things done. Folks like you. You've perked my interest. Go on. You could have just asked me first. No, I ain't wearing no tin star. This has been quite a trial of faith. I would be remiss if I declined. If it means I'll be able to clear my name, then I'll do it. If this means I'll be able to practice medicine again, then sign me up. If I can resume being both a doctor and a lawyer, fine. So I was a doctor and a lawyer before this. Let's Let's go ahead and say medicine. Medicine? Well, what you do in your spare hours is no consequence to me, the marshal offers. The marshal methodically extracts and plugs a pipe full of tobacco as he begins. See, what I'm giving you is a chance to not get stretched. There's a county in Nevada that's in a heap of trouble. I've sent a few marshals their way, but something always happens to them. And yeah, by something I mean they run off or come back in a pine box. A sulphurous crackle fills the air as Marshal James strikes a match and lights his pipe. In the sudden light, you can see hard features and rough skin earned from a lifetime under the open sky. Even his graying hair has a feel of granite about it. The only contrast lies about the man's neck, a slim red silk tie, a fashionable cut that is a definite deviation from his trail-worn attire. I'm stupid. I can't read properly. I'm just going to shut up and try to keep going. That way I don't constantly interrupt with me being like, I fucking suck. Blue smoke spills out from the marshal's pipe as he huffs. Now, if you take up the star, you'll head on Lander County in Nevada and serve the people there for a term of 4 years. After that, I'll let you go where you want. Sound good? Yeah, sign me up. All those other marshals couldn't pacify this Lander County. How could I? Give a nod, shake my head. Are you offering me redemption? No, I won't do this. Give a nod. I'll take that as a yes. Marshal James considers a moment as he idly puffs out a cloud of blue smoke. The soft scrape of boots is heard from the scaffolding above. A steady whisk of an all too familiar rope being coiled up follows hard on its heels. Marshal James settles back by a narrow seam of sunlight that flickers through a warp in the wall and gives you a little nod. Glad we understand each other. Now, I might seem a mite hard, and I am, but I ain't flicking my whip solely on account of needing a tin star in Lander County. You remember who you killed? That deed got you here? Did not kill that man. I did not kill that woman. I killed that man only because he would have killed me first. I killed that woman only because she would have killed me first. Yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah, I recall that gal. Not as I recall the man who died. Not as I recall the woman who died. I said recall. Shut up. Me shut up. Me just don't talk for the rest of the video. Just click through. I don't know what this is supposed to actually be. If I go ahead and show stats. I don't think anything is increased or changed. Let's go ahead and actually wait. Yeah, healthy and vigorous. Traits: lawyer, stoic, and doctor. Okay. I guess you're defaulted to being a doctor and a lawyer, but whatever. Oh no, maybe because I said that he didn't give me the proficia evidence, I became a lawyer. What did I do that became a doctor? What made me a doctor? Whatever. Maybe you default to being doctor or something. Let's say I only killed that man because he would have killed me first. Your lawyer argued that rather well, the marshal notes, but the jury was bought and paid for. There were powerful people who needed to see you swing. Now, revenge is a messy thing, and so I expect they won't stop until they ravage everything you hold dear. That is, unless someone intervenes. I take that someone is you. Why aren't you just chock full of charity? What exactly are you offering here? Just let him talk. I'll let him talk. The sun continues to rise, and the day has nearly breached the last of the night. Little bars of sunlight continue to spill through the cracks in the walls until shadows between begin to retreat. Now, you're going to have to leave the state. Heck, you're going to have to leave behind your former life. But I've made special arrangements concerning that. The marshal promises as clear as the coming day. What you leave behind will be kept safe. Now, you might be inclined to think that I'm holding hostage, and I expect you'd be half right. This way I can be sure you won't just run off in the wild, and because of that you won't be sleeping atop Old Boot Hill come nightfall. So, why don't you tell me what exactly I'll be looking after of yours here in California? Family, of course, a good friend, a nice bit of land, my medical practice, my legal practice for doctors, my hospital for lawyers, grunt and gesture, my law firm. Why am I automatically a doctor or my legal practice for doctors, my hospital for lawyers? What are these choices that I'm getting here? What the fuck am I having him look after? I don't want to assume that I've got family here because I want to play as myself in this world, not defaulted to having a family. Let's just say a nice piece of land. Sure. I remember now. Yeah, it is a nice piece. I'll see that it's tended and taxes are paid while you're gone, Marshal James promises. Now then, doc lawyer or lawyer doc or whatever you were, I've got a badge here. He holds up a simple 5-point star of flattened tin. Across the front of it has been etched with the word Marshall. Along one point of the dull silvery metal, there is a trace of dark stain that doesn't seem likely to scrub clean. With a flick of fingers, he tosses it to you. The star's just tin. It won't stop a bullet. Hell, it won't even cut a steak. It's just a hunk of metal on someone's chest, Marshal James says. The marshal who wears it, has to make it shine by their own hand. So tell me, what are you best at? Gunfighting, sharpshooting, brawling, riding, survival in the wild, being a lawyer, building things, blowing things up with gunpowder or nitroglycerin, persuading people, intimidating people, working from sunup to sundown, not giving up. Let's say persuading. Let me actually show stats real quick. Persuasion is at 25%, and I'll say persuading next. All right. Persuasion increased 15%. Sweet. I think my intimidate went up 2% too. What are you good at? Let's say not giving up. Resolve is at 32. That went up 10%. So I'm going to say sharpshooting next. So these all declined just a little bit as I increased the other ones. Let's say gunfighting next, which is currently at 28, because I'm decent with a firearm. I'm at 33 now for that, and that automatically increases sharpshooting because they're related. And then what have I dabbled with? I'll say riding because I've actually done a mild amount of horse riding in real life. Alright, so riding is directly at 25% still. My persuasion is higher, my intimidate's a little bit more, my resolve is up just a little bit. Riding slightly increased. I expect your silver tongue will do you well out there. Just remember to back it with iron, Marshal James notes. Now I know who you are, but you can't go using your real name out there after all. You are dead in California. He removes a small sheaf of papers from his vest pocket. The imprint of a birth certificate is apparent on its foremost, while the other official-looking emblems can be seen atop others. Don't worry none about people checking up on you. By the time they pry these from my fingers and figure out they're forged, your 4 years will be up. Just don't run for office afterward, he says wryly, and then taps the end of a gold gilt pen. Yeah, gold gilt. Okay. Now let's get you a working name. I am Mr. Miss. I'm going to be a marshal. I'll be calling myself a marshal. I'm still called Doc even if I'm wearing a badge. Say I'm Mr. Marshal James scribbles something down on the paper and then pauses. Your forename. I am Mr. Trace a finger along your Chinese features. Gesture for the pen. I'd like to honor my Indian heritage. A renaming is not something done in a basement. It's interesting that they have these different options here rather than just like all of these. Let's gesture the pen to write it down myself. We'll go ahead and go with Ben. Fuck it. We'll go with my full name because I'm a marshal and be Mr. Spencer. Alright. When he's chosen that one, Marshal James notes as he takes the pen back. He sorts through all the papers and makes several additional notations before returning to them. Anyhow, surname. Let's just go with Hall. I'm not going to go with my actual last name. Once the scribbling is done, he sets aside his pen and takes a glance at his handiwork. Now then, Mr. Spencer Hall, shall I lay out the troubles of Lander County for you? Sure, I've got time. Tell me everything that's involved here. Just lay out the bare bones for me. I'll figure it out when I get there. Just unlock the door, silently ask for the whole story. Gesture for the short conversation. Head for the door. Let me know. Well, Nevada ain't what you'd call populous. The first white man to take a gander at the parched deserts and high mountains was Francisco Garces back in 1770-something. He was a missionary in Spanish, did a lot of exploring when he wasn't praying. The man found the Mojave and the Grand Canyon both, but the Spaniards were more interested in California than a stretch of parched earth, so they didn't do near to nothing with it for a long while. When the treaty came of Guadalupe Hidalgo back in 1848, when Mexico gave up big swaths of territory in exchange for peace in America, back then Nevada was called Washoe after one of them Indian tribes, but only the mountain men ever saw more than a lick of it. That changed when the Mormons started carving out niches for wagons headed west around 1851. Good work that. Changed the whole idea of crossing the frontier. You didn't have to empty your pockets to get a boat for California anymore. But that's all Nevada were for a decade. Just a place to roll your wagon through. No reason to stay, at least until Comstock started silver mining. Thousands came out, mainly from California. Then someone discovered gold near Aurora, and so the rush was on. In 1861, Nevada became a territory. I didn't realize he was going to give me an actual history lesson when he said that. I thought he was going to, like, give me a little bit of backstory about it. Like, I probably should have gone for the shorter version at this point. Of course, in 61, the war between the states also got started. I'm sure you heard all about North versus South, Union versus Confederacy, Blue versus Gray, brother against brother. I've got some kin back in Kansas that got elbow deep in blood, and I've got to tell you, I'm glad that didn't spill out here. Leastways, not more than a few drops. Anyway, despite the war, people kept coming to Nevada and settling in. There were about 5,000 by the time the Federals pushed through Nevada statehood. They had to get an exemption for that, but they got it, and so the state of Nevada was born in the midst of a terrible, bloody war back east. As you might expect, most in Nevada cast their votes for Lincoln. Shame about what happened to that man. Anyway, the war ended and that trickle of settlers became a deluge. Some people come to Prospect and get rich enough to go elsewhere, but enough have stuck around that Nevada's now got 40,000 souls. That's about 1 per square mile, assuming the border adjustment goes through. Bit of strange politics that. They're shifting the Nevada border a ways east at Utah's expense. Yeah. Well, he's probably got somewhat of a southern accent. Maybe. It's California. But it also is Old West times. Something about the meridians and such that I don't rightly understand. Surveyors might know more, but that's no never mind. Right now, silver and gold are both having another rush, and the prospectors are like to let slip their findings in whatever town happens to be near. Elko's the biggest, but her sheriff keeps things well in line. Galena ain't so bad, nor is Kingston or Albion Falls. No, I expect you'll come to make your mark in places like Preston Springs, where the law stays abed and cowboys come to play. That's what it is. So when I do influence, Marshall James, Yiska, Maria, Albion, Hardigan, Preston, Caraway, Schmidt, Carson, Albion and Preston, maybe those are influence in those places. Now you might note that I ain't said much about the Indians. Well, I should have. The Shoshone around your parts are on the warpath, and there have been raids all over the place. It's gotten so bad that the army is talking about building a fort right quick to try and suppress those Reds. I expect they will, too. There's more than enough veterans from the war between the states walking around and following the surrender. North or south, it don't matter when it's Indians they're fighting. Don't know how you handle the Shoshone. It ain't like they'll just quiet down and go away. They know how that worked with the other tribes back east. They're fired up, armed, and worst of all, smart about things. They pick their targets carefully, because some hell, and then some go out on... Cause some hell, and then go out on before the cavalry shows up. Get on out before the cavalry shows up. I need to slow down. That brings us to the big thing. The railroad is coming through Lander County, and it's coming in a hurry. As soon as the Central Pacific finishes the tunnels through the Sierra Mountains, they're going to start through Nevada. Some of the East Union Pacific Railroad has work crews laying track through Nebraska and I think Wyoming territory. Once the two companies link up in Utah, this nation will have its first ever transcontinental rail line. Used to be 3 ways to get to California. You can sail around South America, that takes 6 months, and it ain't a stroll down boardwalk. You could land in Central America and make your way over the isthmus there to the Pacific and hope to find a ship headed on up. Faster than that, but there's all sorts of sickness on the jungles that might shave a good deal more than 3 months off your life. Lastly, you could go overland. Like I said, there's a few trails and roads now thanks to the Mormons, but wagons ain't cheap, and out here in the wild, there are 100 more dangers waiting to descend. California might be the next paradise on earth, but it's plenty hard getting here. The railroad will change all that. It won't take 6 months to cross from east to west. It'll take scarcely a week. That goes for goods as well as people too. Prices will go down, which means more can afford and settle across the land. And all it'll take is laying of iron rails. But in that untamed county ain't quiet. If the surveyors and graders start getting killed, then one thing might stitch together and two halves of this nation might not happen. Can't think of anything worse than that, mainly because so many have sunk so much sweat, blood, and treasure into seeking it through that everyone in America might as well put the stitches from their pockets. That's part of the reason I'm recruiting low fruit from strange trees. I need Lander County settled, least ways enough for a rail line. Marshall James gives you a considering glance. I hope you do better than the previous marshals and spare me the cost of a pine box. I'm trying to get into it a little bit more. I haven't read one of these in a long time, and I don't usually read my books on computer. I prefer to print them off and edit them that way. Aside from like the initial editing and adding more stuff in until I get to a point where it's somewhat readable. The radiance of the morning drives out the cold from your bones as you step out. Better than a pull of panther juice, it swathes on you and the whole of San Francisco in a golden light. Even the hanging scaffold, empty now, doesn't look quite so terrifying. A guy can't help but smile because just a little while ago you didn't think you'd get to see it again. Last thing, Marshal James says as he steps before you. The brim of his hat threatens to blot out the happy sun. A bit of tin flashes in his powerful fingers as he affixes the marshal's badge. There you are, nice and legal. That is, if and you affirm. I swear to uphold the laws of Nevada, serve the public, and protect the innocent. I so swear, yeah, nod with all my heart. Just give a little nod. You know how many loopholes there are in that oath? I so swear. You are now a provisional marshal pending the paperwork, Marshal James says agreeably. So let's get you on your way. And remember, I'll be looking after your piece of land out here. I'll try to keep the courts from seizing it, seeing how you killed Thomas Upton in legal self-defense. And then they faked murdering me in legal self-defense. Logic. The rest of the day is a blur as you ride away from San Francisco on a borrowed saddle. By evening, you reach a lonely hotel. I get messed up because this person didn't do their commas. Okay, it should be by evening, you reach a, but instead it's like by evening you reach a blah 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 blah. By evening, you reach a lonely hotel across from an idle train station. Waiting in a room under the name Spencer Hall is a bundle of your belongings, but even those familiar items can't help you settle in when night comes. Your dreams are a disjointed mess filled with screeching winged cats that dart about a pale blue bubble in the sky until it begins to plummet directly towards you. It is almost a relief when the distant blast of a steam whistle wakens you at dawn. Your journey to Nevada begins by being whisked down iron rails. The boxy black steam engine chugs rhythmically as it pulls both freight and passenger cars along at a speed no horse can match, or at least not for long. The engine drives you steadily eastward, pausing briefly at towns and villages along the way. Just out the window are men in bowler hats and tidy trim suits, cowboys in long dusters, and farmers in rough wool shirts. A few women, too, from sunburnt madres in calico to little girls in pigtails and sundresses. They make it official. California is no longer the frontier. Even the fly-speck coaling and watering station out in the middle of nowhere have a dispatch office now. In a few months, there will be little villages all along the line. Along one stretch, the iron road has been laid straight through sprawling forest whose tree trunks are 6 or more feet across. No doubt the trestles below are made from the same wood. Before long, the engine labors up in a steady incline into snowy peaked mountains that swiftly dominate everything except the sky. Here the tracks round bends just a stone's throw from deep gorges. Time and again, the steam engine plunges through tunnels that have been laboriously cut through the mountainsides. The sun hangs high overhead and slowly broils the land. The train's engine roars that as the train engine. I didn't even read the word wrong. The train's engine ignores that as it spews out black ash and cinders as it labors towards white-capped mountains filled to the brim with snow. Somewhere far ahead, beyond the reach of rails, and down twisting, turning wagon trails, out past the ranges of the Sierra, lies Preston Springs and your marshal's office. The steam engine gives a relieved chug as it slows. The hiss of brakes rises up, and then you see it, the end of the line. Here lies a muddy, sprawling camp of men. Stacks of iron rails and wood ties wait in high piles to be taken on around an imposing summit and laid down. Only a few solid buildings can be seen. Most are either creaky barns or coal casements. Otherwise, it is a sea of tents and cook fires, neither of which can completely ward away the mountainous chill. There are Chinese in abundance, with their basket hats and simple, loose garb at odds with puffs of locomotive steam. Amongst them, you see amongst them, you glimpse a smattering of Irishmen, Red Indians, and even a sprinkling of handsome Pacific Islanders who readily fill up the narrow ways between tents as they scurry about under the guidance of their white-shirt supervisors. You hop down from the passenger car, and your boots crunch upon desolate earth beneath. Yeah, I read that right. The scent of cinders fades and is replaced with the ripeness of manure, men, and beasts. This high up in the mountains is oh, this high up in the mountains, it is hard to catch your breath even when the wind blows strong. Fucking Comas, Alan Gies. Back by the rear cars, a black see commas. This isn't my fault I'm fucking up. It's yours. Rubbing my nips because they itch. Back by the rear cars, a black bearded fellow in a red shirt wrenches open the siding of a rail car to reveals. I read that right. A small herd of horses and mules. Indeed, one familiar neigh sounds out, and you just know that your prize stallion will be ready to center on down the ramp. Canter. Why did I read that as an S? Are my eyes not working? He's a beautiful bay, whose lush brown coat is livened by black mane and legs. He is a stolid, nearly brick-red sorrel whose white socks perpetually seem to be pulled down. The vibrant, multi-hued pinto's painted composition is set off by startling bright blue eyes. The hardy brown buckskin's dark eyes and hooves soak in the sunlight. I find it hard not to smile at my steed, a rare slate-gray grulla that bears the faintest hint of zebra striping along the legs. The vivid salt and pepper roan has a splotch of white in a vague star-like mark about one of those dark eyes. So that it's a bay. I'm gonna go with fucking bay. As you wait for things to clear up, the bearded man in the rusty red shirt slips a halter over the head of your steed and begins to guide it down the ramp, right past you into the camp, taking your horse with him. Hey, that's my horse. What do you think you're doing? Pull my pistol, but don't aim at the man yet. Pardon me, you seem to be guiding my steed without consulting me. Step in front of the man and stare him down. Isn't horse thievery punishable by death out here? Pardon me, but you seem to be taking my steed without consulting me. Did I get persuasion? I think I got a percent in persuasion for that. Maybe. Your horse, the bearded man blinks in confusion. What the heck do you mean? At the sound of your voice, your brown bay flicks its black mane and nickers eagerly. The man in the red shirt blinks in astonishment as the steed tugs at the halter and strains to reach your side. You got apples in your pockets, fella? He wonders and watches your steed noses you with evident familiarity. My mistake. This horse looked just like the one my brother wrote me about. Understandable. Until you get to know a particular horse, they often look alike. That means your horse must still be inside the rail car. Just nod. Understandable. It's understandable. Yeah, they do that, the man nods. I'm Denny Basso, lead drover for the Central Pacific camp here. Glad to make your acquaintance. Alright, let's go ahead and figure out what he's going to be. Let's just be he's a gruff guy. He holds out a grubby hand. Let's shake Denny's hand. And then show stats. I don't see no Denny on here. Although I do have honor. Did I just get that? Current companions, none. Boring. Mr. Spencer Hall. Denny gives your hand a firm shake and looks you in the eye. Good to meet you, sir. Sorry about the mix and all. Honor slightly increased. Oh yeah, cool. For shaking his hand. The clatter of the camp continues. Men amble to and fro. The scent of baked beans wafts in from somewhere close by. A hint of dry dust lingers in the air. So you traveling? You look like you're traveling. Denny asks as he finishes shaking your hand. Yes, I'm traveling east on horseback apparently. How long until the trains are running through the tunnel up ahead? What exactly do you do around here? Can I ask about the Chinese gesture into the distance? I hate to impose, but do you know the best way through the mountains ahead? You wouldn't happen to have a spare map, would you? Do you have a spare map? Map? Denny asks mostly to himself. I couldn't just give you one of our good ones, but there's plenty of copies about if you know where to look. He takes a short walk to one of the tents and disappears inside. When he comes out, there is a rolled up paper in his hand. Here you go. But in truth, the easiest way forward is to skirt the mountain right along the line, or as best you can. Our graders have been going at things with fills and trestles for a ways now. Always keep Bigler Lake to your right until you're far from here. After that, there's a pair of mountains that'll make for fine landmarks. As Denny winds down, his gaze flicks over at the revolver on your hip. Quite a piece there, he says, then gives a bit of a chuckle. And obviously, I mean the weapon. Yeah, my ads are up here, buddy. Let the sun glint off my mighty Colt Walker 44. Let the shadows play along my Remington New Model 44. Tap the engraved cylinder of my Colt 36 Navy revolver. Finger the grip on my nickel 32. Tap my Smith & Wesson Model 1, a 22 caliber pistol that uses the new rim fire cartridges. I would go with the Smith & Wesson, except it says the new rimfire cartridges. So I'm assuming they might. This person seems like they're just trying to give a good history lesson on this. So there's probably one of these that will give me the highest chance of having ammo available to me. If I go with a new rimfire cartridge, I'm not going to find that shit. Okay? That's going to be expensive to try and resupply if there at any point I can actually get up wealth and actually be able to buy that. And I don't know enough about the rest of these. So there's a Colt Remington, a Colt 36, so 44 or 36. I'm just going to go with the Colt 44. The Colt Walker is an older smoke wagon, but it shoots as far and hits as hard as a rifle, but without all the fuss of a long arm. Reliable, too, just so long as you don't load up anywhere near 60 grains of powder, because then the packing lever will flick down and jam the cylinder, or worse, bust it wide open. Distance is not important in a gunfight. I would have a different weapon. I need a gun that is also a rifle, and that gun is the Colt Walker 44. It has always been my side. Oh, so you can like read up on them by picking them. Yeah, sure, let's go for distance. You linger a mite to say a proper farewell to Denny, but soon enough you are saddled up and riding east. Central Pacific's bustling little camp is the last rail-connected bastion of civilization before you plunge into the unforgiving wilds of Nevada. Your pack mule, laden with grain and gear, lopes steadily behind your brown bay. A ways ahead, a bevy of carpenters raise the frame for a roadhouse. Farther along, a work gang of 30 Chinese methodically spike fresh rails while more of their cohorts lay down wooden ties and fit in ballast to make everything settle properly. Beyond them are busy teams who dig cuts or dump dirt to make fills so the coming track can run steady and level. A distant explosion sounds, and judging from the rise of dust, the tunneling and grading teams are still miles ahead. Head due east and keep heading east. Follow the rail layers for a ways. Use the map to swing around southeast and try to pick up the stagecoach track that Denny mentioned. Just head for the Twin Tetons until I run across it. Let's use the map. I'm going to listen to what Denny said because he gave me a map. We're going to follow what he said. I didn't pay attention to the actual cardinal directions when he was talking. I just know I'm headed east. And he said to go around the mountain. So we're going to swing southeast and try to pick up the stagecoach track that Denny mentioned. So that's what we're going to do. You pass by numerous crews. They are mostly Chinese except for the foreman. The men nod your way before resuming their work. Farther ahead, you pass the surveyors who, with plumb bobs and sighting levels, methodically stake out the coming rail. Before long, those men are all left behind. The barren slopes and dry valleys seem to be the only things around, but after a few days' ride, you finally sight the Twin Tetons. Soon afterwards, you come across a stagecoach road, though actually calling it a road is generous. The twin ruts meander through the valley in so lazy a way that they might have well been laid out by a madman. Still, those are wide enough that a stagecoach could follow them even at dusk. A low thunder rises in the distance. Over your shoulder you find curled white clouds streaming down the mountains you left behind like giant fluffy fish scales. Good sensory there. Or not sensory, but description. A sniff of the air brings with the scent of a storm. Find shelter and wait for it to pass. It is nothing but a little rain. I can keep going. Let's shelter down. We're out here by ourselves. I don't want to get fucked by this shit, okay? Unfortunately, there isn't a lick of shelter to be found in these mountain slopes and narrow valleys, but somewhere down the road, there might be a town or a cold harbor of some kind. Seek out shelter down the road. Head up into the mountains to get away from any possible flooding. Trot down into a valley where lightning won't strike. Pitch my tent alongside the road and dig in. It's hinting that I should continue down the road, so let's go down the road. You ride and ride as fast as you can. Behind you is the gingerbread man. The storm bears down in a wall of towering gray clouds. Bits of hail begin to fall. The stinging ice smacks you and your animals about a while until sheets of rain follow. Soon there isn't a dry inch left. Your mule suddenly rebels and tugs itself free of your wet grip, then trots off on its own. Go after the mule, forget it, get to shelter. Fuck. It's my pack mule. It's got all my shit on it, except for my gun and everything else. Go after the mule, damn it. The mule doesn't. Fuck you! The mule doesn't know where to go in driving rain, but it doesn't stop you from trying. By the time you bring back the mule under control, the worst of the storm has passed and you have acquired a dreadful cough. Fuck. Let's see, that health decreased. I'm wounded. That's a wound now. After a miserable night of clammy rest, you set out again to find that the land has been transformed. Green shoots and flowers litter the hillsides and ridges as if to greet the morning in bursts of brilliant colors. Between wet coughs, you gaze across the transformed land and find a swollen river in your way. This stretch of water might have been just a muddy stream yesterday, but right now it is a fast-flowing chocolate serpent that slithers steadily south. Branches, leaves, and a few dead mice bob their way along in the waters at least 3 feet deep. Not unmanageable, but certainly not a simple trot. Try and cross on horseback, lead my steed across, rest up and wait for the water level to drop. Look for a better place to cross. Let's lead across. I'm not going to cross on horseback. You want to lead. You don't want to be on the horse when you're going home. Fuck that. You take up the reins and lead your way into the water. The current tries to pull you off your feet, and the horse really isn't helping. Indeed, the bay would probably rather just be cropping grass somewhere else, but that doesn't matter when you are doing the pulling. Soon you are riding east once again. Days swiftly become weeks. A little health recovered. Cool. Days swiftly become weeks, and you traverse a desolate country where even a coyote would have to carry a canteen. Indeed, you could almost miss the storm if it weren't for that rasp of a cough that won't quite go away. The whole of it's parched right down to the roots, as if famine had decided to make it home. Only the sparse rivers and streams that cross the land dare to turn dusty brown land into stretches of green for a time. I can't stand it when you use the same words that sound very similar. Land, don't use that, not twice in the same sentence. That doesn't work. Time and time again, you nearly empty your mule's water skins before you reach a place to refill them. A little health recovered. What am I at now? Am I back up to... I'm healthy enough. Okay. A particularly arid stretch tests your limits with dry camp after dry camp. Even the prickly cactus begins to look succulent, but thankfully a bit of green up ahead catches your eye. A little bit of pasture where the grass is long, and that means water is nearby. As you consider that, a shot rings out. It came from a rifle somewhere up ahead. Thankfully, whoever opened fire wasn't shooting at you. Ride on over to that little pasture and see what their fuss is all about. Sneak in close to the pasture and see what's going on. Fire off a few rounds from my own. We're going to sneak in. Duh. What I have as my options for this? Survival is 26, legal is 12, engineering is 10. I wonder what engineering is going to end up doing for me later. Of course, I've got resolve, gunfighting, sharpshooting is actually up to... Oh, I got sharpshooting because I accepted the pistol that's also a rifle. And my brawling went up somehow. Probably because I had to fight the mule or some shit. No, it doesn't explain everything, but it at least gives me a little bit of a notice that something happened. Let's sneak in close to the pasture and see what's going on. You dismount, loop the reins around a low scrub of tree, and creep in closer. Low scrub of a tree, okay. There is not a lot of cover, but there really isn't any alternative. The soft lowing of a dozen cattle tells you this isn't a wolf pack or bear. There is no smudge of smoke in the air, and that means no campfire. As you peek over top, you find a duster-clad figure poised with a rifle in hand. The cowboy cuts a narrow silhouette as he takes aim at some distant target. An errant breeze stirs the tail of his coat, and he shifts the barrel ever so slightly. A glance finds another fella hiding behind a wedge of slate around which is strewn more than a few pans and screens. The prospector has got a pistol out and cocked. His bristle of bushy beard almost makes him seem like a bear in the rough. It appears to be some kind of standoff is happening, and like... What? It appears to be some kind of standoff is happening, and like as not, it won't end anytime soon. right. Alan, if you want my recommendation, Comas, pay attention. Get it right. Okay. It appears there's some kind of standoff that's happening and won't end anytime soon. We're gonna rewrite that in my own words. Thank you, Gaius, whatever your name is. Leastways, not before you and your horse die of thirst. Can we just stop with the southern jargon in what you're describing to me? I don't need to hear this type of crap, sorry. Your hardy little mule might make it, though. A small consolation at best. Take out my rifle and shoot the cowboy. Take out my rifle and shoot the prospector. Shoot both and let someone else sort it all out. Ride down. Since they're fixing to shoot each other, they won't bother me or my thirsty steed. I'm going to try to get them to talk it the fuck out. Okay, we're just going to ride down. The sparse scraggle of brush slowly gives way to tufts of green grass and gnarled trees. Ahead lies a little stream that burbles up seemingly from solid rock. It gathers there in a shallow pool just below the slate-gray stone and promises cool relief you could grasp with both hands. Clustered near a picturesque watering hole, a dozen or so cattle graze, and amidst them stands a lean rake of a cowboy who stands ready, his rifle in both hands. His wide-brimmed hat shifts your way and reveals a narrow silhouette like a mountain treetop. The tails of his long tan trail coat lie as still as the grave as his rifle remains wholly fixed upon something near the bubbling spring. You follow his gaze, find that it leads to a spring head. There a shift of dark cloth flutters in the breeze. A gray-touched prospector, pistol in hand, hides behind a jut of slate. The man could be part bear, what with a thick bristle of beard and mustache. At his feet rests a battered pans, picks, and screens the gold-seeking trade. Off to one side, the pool lies a hefty but lifeless calf. A trickle of blood leans out from its side where a bullet has struck. I don't want to keep playing. It literally just gave me the exact same, the same thing in slightly different wording. And I don't think they necessarily intended me to pick the specific route. It might have just chucked me back on. Not cool. This is a negative review right now. I did review Champions of the Gods. I should go back and review the other ones. Those ones were good. Go play those ones. I can't review 10 Star yet. It's grating me. Honestly, I'm gonna stop and eat, but oh boy.